Vancouver Hockey Show, Andrew Wadden alongside the Healthy Scratches, Nic Hauka and Jake Fraser, in a week where it was an even split for the Canucks. 3 games played, 1 win, 1 loss, 1 OTL. And guys, if we wheel it all the way back to last Sunday, facing off against the Tampa Bay Lightning, obviously Tampa's Tampa. They're still going to be that team. They're still a force. They may not necessarily be the Tampa 5 years ago, but they're always a tough team to play. And honestly, Nick, I thought that Tampa came out in that game and were the old Bolts. Like the cross seam passes, I was having nightmares of a couple of years ago with the Canucks, just allowing so many seams to open up. And when you do that with an elite player like Nikita Kucherov, he's going to burn you.
He absolutely is, and he showed that on Sunday, right? First 2 periods were a little tough for the Canucks, and then in the third period, I thought that was the best period they've played all season long. It was constant back and forth. They were forcing tons of turnovers. Actually, Kucherov threw 2 muffins right up the middle that the Canucks almost capitalized on, and then ultimately they just got Vasilevski'd, right? Like, there were so many chances for them to take the lead and then tie the game, and they just couldn't pull through. It was, but it was really exciting to watch, and it was really nice for them to kind of play that open style.
I feel like that's been the story of the whole season so far, and especially in a lot of our home games, has been like come out soft, second period get a little bit better, and then by the third period the team finally wakes up. Like it's a bit frustrating to watch at this point in the year. Like they've got to start coming out harder than that. And I, like you said, like they got Vasilevski'd, but they didn't deserve to win that game by any means.
It's true.
No, you're absolutely right about that. The funny thing is, though, is I tweeted, I believe it was on the first goal, that, you know, it's always interesting when Vasilevskiy looks human. But then I ate those words afterwards because he was outstanding the rest of the game. You guys are absolutely right. He was fantastic in the third period. If you're going to get beat by a goaltender in this league, man, there's no shame in getting beat by big Vasi there down in Tampa. Speaking of goaltending, Thatcher Demko makes his season debut, his first game back since game 1 of the first round versus Nashville in the playoffs last year, guys. And this is, of course, against St. Louis on Tuesday night, a 4-3 overtime loss. But, I mean, they get a point out of it, sure. But the big story, of course, Jake, is number 35 back in goal.
Yeah, obviously great to see him back. It obviously wasn't the Thatcher Demko of last year, Vezina caliber performance by any means at all, but I thought he looked solid. I was thinking that he was going to come into the game like letting out some bigger rebounds, things like that, because a lot of the time when a goalie's been out for that long, they need to feel the puck in an NHL game before they get really comfortable. And I thought he looked pretty comfortable, a little slow laterally maybe. I wonder if there's a bit of just like him worrying about his knee moving laterally. So that was a little worrisome for me to see, but I thought overall he played pretty well, and the team just kind of hung him out to dry a little bit.
They absolutely did. Like, I thought, as you said, Jake, I thought it was a solid first game back. Of course, not the Demko that we're used to seeing, but not bad nonetheless. But I would be furious if I was Rick Tocchet or Thatcher Demko on the team's defensive zone coverage. What were they doing? Like, odd man rushes. There was a 2-on-0 at one point in the NHL. Really, guys? Are you serious right now? And some interesting defensive decisions in that game. Why is Erik Brandstrom not playing? Why? Why is he in Tocchet's doghouse? You're going to tell me that Vincent Desharnais is okay to play after the way he's been playing all year, and Brandstrom isn't? He's on our bottom pairs, the only guy capable of moving the puck. I don't care how bad he's playing defensively or if he's not doing the things. You need him in the lineup. That was terrible. Having Friedman on that pair with Desharnais in that game, that was awful to watch. What are we doing?
I saw my buddy Jeff Patterson comparing Friedman to the Bulldog, Alex Biega. Very good comparison, I thought. Kudos to J-Pat on that one. I thought that was a very good comparison. But I agree with you. There's times where I'm like, really? Like, Friedman's in the lineup over, so-and-so, and in this case, it's Brandstrom. I think the Desharnais experiment might be one that they're going to have to figure out what to do with, because he does not look good. He just doesn't seem to mix with the team as well right now. And, we're going to get to Derek Forbort in a moment. Like, I thought Derek Forbort played very well against Florida. In fact, I think that was probably the Canucks' best game of the season. But very similar in terms of, who they are as defensemen, right? They're kind of cement feet, big guys, try to move people out in front of the net. They're not going to beat anybody, in a foot race, and they're going to get beat at times. But seems like Forbort has sort of, found his footing, if you will. And, Desharnais is sort of stuck in the mud right now. I did like in that game, though, that they were able to get back from the 3-1 deficit, although they were up 1-0 to start the game. But Dakota Joshua getting his first of the season, like we talked about the story, coming back from cancer. It is a great story, Jake. And, to see him pot a goal, and we knew that it was going to be one of those seasons for Dakota Joshua in terms of like just trying to get himself up to speed. But boy, what a great story. And hopefully he can build off of that, because really, as this season progresses, and as the Canucks, are flirting with this playoff position, because that's what they are, they haven't cemented themselves yet. Like, they're going to need Dakota Joshua to produce and be that guy that he was last year.
Yeah, I thought after he scored that goal too, like he came out with a little bit more fire. I think a lot of the games that he's played this year, he's been pretty quiet, and understandably, he missed lot of all of training camp. He missed preseason, missed a lot of the first few games of the year. So, yeah, he's just, like you said, he's getting up to speed. But I feel like after potting that goal, he started to kind of feel himself a little bit and get a little bit more confident out there. I thought he was harder on forecheck. He was making hits. Like, I think he's been playing really well lately, and I'm really glad to see him finally get that one. And yeah, like you said, hopefully he can build off that.
Yeah, he's so critical to our success, especially down the stretch. Like, we don't have a lot of forwards that have the grit that he has, but he also has the ability to score and chip in. We saw that in the Nashville series, right? Like, he's so important. So getting him going is going to be so critical to us. And I think, as Jacob said, I think that was a really good step forward. And I think you're starting to see a change in his play now.
So as we record this is on a Friday, December 13th. We just watched the Canucks. Like I said, I think it was their best effort of the season, a 4-0 victory over the Florida Panthers. And we saw the return of JT Miller after missing 10 games. He comes back. He wraps up a couple of assists in the game. Max Sasson gets a couple of assists in the game. I mean, he's making the most out of what he's getting in terms of playing time right now. But guys, Kevin Lankinen with the shutout, his third of the season, he's tied for the NHL lead. I mean, are we looking at tandem now, Nick, moving forward? Because Kevin Lankinen has been a top 10 goaltender in the NHL this year. And, as we, saw with Demko in terms of, wanting to make sure that he's got himself right, we asked the people on our socials, what should it be in terms of the split? A lot of people saying 50-50. I mean, are we looking at a tandem situation right now throughout the rest of the year? Or are they just going to, continue to run the hot hand?
Yeah, I think either could work for them. I think I would prefer to see the 50-50 thing and let Demko kind of find his game right now. It's so hard to take Lankinen out of the creaser now. He, as you said, he's playing at such a high level, which is so unexpected, but it's just consistent. Every night he's good. His worst games are just kind of like average. Like, he hasn't really had a bad game this year. He's done one or two softies here and there, but for the most part, he's been a brick wall. It's been great to watch. So I think at this point, hard to take him out of the net, split him 50-50. I think you could even maybe go 60-40 and really ease Demko back the way he's playing right now, which I know maybe that doesn't, with knowing how good Demko is, maybe on the surface, that doesn't seem very smart, but I think really giving Demko time and less pressure to get back to where he needs to be would be very valuable down the stretch for us.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, everything just keeps telling me, though, but, this guy's Vezina caliber. What are we doing here? It's been great that Kevin Lankinen is coming in and, sort of filled in for the big boy to be out. But I mean, listen, it's professional sports. Like results are what matters, right? And you're not here to, make sure somebody feels good, right, about themselves. So, if that's the case, so be it. If Lankinen can run with it, I say do it. And I mean, it's a good situation to be in to have two good goaltenders. As I mentioned, JT Miller makes his return in that game, misses 10 games. Jake, what did you like out of JT Miller that last night? Because it seemed like he didn't really miss a beat, and the crowd, boy, did they like having number 9 back.
Yeah, it didn't really seem like he had missed a ton of time. Like I didn't think it was his best game that he's played this year, but he didn't get a ton of ice time either. None of the forwards did. I think the highest ice time was Connor Garland with just over 16 minutes. So, but yeah, he looked good. He obviously a couple of points was nice to see. Yeah, I'd like to see him maybe a little bit harder on forecheck, stuff like that. Like I didn't really see a ton of that last night, but just glad to have him back. Obviously, he's such a huge part of our team, and I think you could tell the Canucks definitely missed him, especially the last few games, the Tampa Bay game, the St. Louis game. So it was really good to have him back against the Cup champs from last year, Florida. So yeah, it's good to have him back, and hopefully he can get going here and get Brock Boeser going here as well.
Outside of Atu Ratu, Max Sasson over the 3 games played over the week was the lowest forward in terms of time on ice, just 10 minutes and 50 seconds. But Nick, he's making the most of it right now and really making a case for somebody that's going to be hard to take out of the lineup. Now, this is a guy that did 4 years of college. Like, he is not a youngster. He's 24, so it's time to blank or get off the pot in terms of your NHL career. But he's doing it right now, and if he can keep it up like this, especially with the limited minutes, he's going to become a favorite of Rick Tocchet's.
He definitely is, and he plays the way that Tocchet likes, right? Like he's physical, he's hard on the forward check, he back checks really hard, and it was interesting. I didn't think he was that great of a skater until I saw him fly down the left wing and outskate 2 Panthers for that puck. I don't know, maybe they had some Roxy fever going on or something. Always a possibility when you're in Vancouver, but if he really adds that element to his game, maybe he was feeling a little bit nervous early on. Now he feels like he can play a little more freely. Really, really important to have those depth pieces down the stretch, especially with injuries and going into the playoffs, to keep your 3rd and 4th line fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's been one of the biggest strengths for the Canucks this year is the amount of depth that they've been able to move in and out of the lineup, and like guys, stepping up when they get the opportunity, like Max Sasson. By the way, do people still go to the Roxy? I mean, you guys are young, so I wouldn't imagine that either of you are stepping into the Roxy. But
there's never a bad day of the week to go, Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm a big Millennial Monday guy. I know, like with school and stuff right now, I have not been able to go, and we're going to keep it that way. But, now that we're on a little bit of semester break here, I was a frequenter in the summer, so we'll see.
In my DJ career days, I used to play at Republic often. I had a residency there, so it was right next door. So I have been to the Roxy, but I don't really remember the times that I was there. Usually a bit foggy when I walked in there. So through the week, Quinn Hughes is one of the guys that led the team in scoring through the week. He had 3 points. Ho hum for Quinn Hughes. No, sorry, he led the team in scoring for the week. Just the single guy with 3 points. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is he's up to 34 points. So he's 2 back of Cale Makar right now for the most by any NHL defenseman. But he leads the NHL with points per game by a D-man at 1.21. I mean, Norris Trophy winner, there's really not much more you can say about Quinn Hughes. But Jake, like, the things that he does just, sort of week or game in and game out now, just continue to amaze. And I know we praised him on the last episode, stating that, or at least I did, stating that I believe he's going to be the greatest Canuck of all time once it's all said and done. But if there's really a guy that is going to pull the Canucks, into those, top spots in the Pacific, perhaps even flirt with winning another division banner, like it's going to be Quinn Hughes. But man, there's like what a season he's having so far. And it just seems like he just goes to strength every season. I would not hear an argument, even as, a couple months ago about him and Cale Makar. I'd always say, yeah, Quinn Hughes is great, but like, come on, like look at Cale Makar. I'm willing to hear that argument now.
Yeah. I mean, with the injuries the Canucks have had, Filip Hronek, missing JT Miller, missing Brock Boeser, missing Thatcher Demko, I think the main reason they're still having a pretty successful season is Quinn Hughes. He's carried the team every single night. He's the best player on the ice between both teams. Like he's might even be touching top 10 player in the league category now. Like if we want to talk about Cale Makar being the top 5 player in the league, you have to have Quinn Hughes in that conversation. Like you just said, it's unbelievable. Like the way he's able to just effortlessly make these sharp turns, lose defenders, lose guys that are on him. Like there'll be a guy on the blue line all over him. Hughes has no space. He finds a way to do a little curl, walk the point. He's now got 5 feet of space. It's unbelievable to see. It's crazy. But yeah, he's easily the best player on the Canucks right now, and he might be having another Norris Trophy winning season.
Yeah, when he makes those sharp turns, he looks like a rep player that decided he doesn't want to play anymore, and now he's playing house hockey. And he just makes defenders who are really talented players just look terrible. And it's pretty crazy to see at the NHL level, especially like the type of player he'll do that to. I really think he's changed the way he's played the last 2 years, but more so this year, he shoots way more. He's clearly worked on his shot. There was an elevation last year in his shot. It's another step harder now. And I know a lot of his shots get blocked, but when they get through, like he's scoring way more than he ever has. And he's being so aggressive with the puck too. Before he would just try to make passes. Now he's shooting. Also, when he's on the ice, is the puck ever in our zone? I feel like at worst, like he makes a nice clean breakout and we dump the puck in and get a change. That's like the worst case scenario. He's just so critical to play. And like, I'm not a big analytics guy, but if you're looking at the analytics, just like the zone time would be something very interesting to look at when he's on the ice for the Canucks.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to dig into the analytics to truly appreciate what he does though, and I'm talking like go to NHL Edge and, just really dive into it and just see how impactful he is on the ice. I can't remember who it was. Somebody tweeted the other day, like the things that happen while Quinn Hughes is on the ice and the things that don't happen. And it is literally night and day for the Canucks. Now, some would argue they really only have like one legit defenseman right now. And that's why those numbers would be skewed. But hey, like look where they are. It's not like they're a bottom feed or anything like that. They've got their head above water. They're in a playoff race and, for the most part are having a fairly successful season. So I think you're right, Jake. A lot of this has to do with the fact that it's 43 out there dictating everything. So 17 goals last year. And I think at the start of the last year, it might've been a couple of years ago on my previous pod, because we talked about the shooting thing as well. I predicted last year he was going to hit double digits in goals. And I think that was a pretty easy prediction. He got 17. On pace this year for 20 right now. So let's see if he can hit that mark, which is always a phenomenal mark for a defenseman to hit, the 20 goal mark. Let's dive into the JT Miller situation for just a moment, guys, because I got a few things to say about it. And I want to make sure that you, the listener, don't want to come through whatever listening device you are listening this to or watching, perhaps on YouTube, because I do want to be sensitive about the situation. However, I feel that this was a club suspension for JT Miller. I don't feel that this was a reset of sorts for him. I mean, perhaps it was. Perhaps the team, did suspend him for that. I feel something happened with JT Miller and the club just had to the point where they had to make a decision to do something. Now, do I know what that is? Absolutely not. Am I speculating? Of course I am. But I know people that work for the team. I've talked to people that work for the team, and nobody wanted to go down that road. I didn't suggest it to them. They told me that there was an injury. We all know that there was. We saw that in the preseason, right? But I was just told that he needed a reset, and this is from a particular person that works for the team. But we do know that there has been some friction, or at least there's been some rumors of some friction in the dressing room, in particular between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. So I'm wondering if something, got to a breaking point where the team had to do something. Again, just speculating. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat my hat, but will we find out about this? Probably not, whether there's any truth to it. But I feel like with the 10 games, it just seems like a round enough number that, and the fact too, that like he came back and, it wasn't his best game, but he kind of didn't miss a beat, he, two apples last night, looked good. So if if that is the case, that what I'm talking about, hopefully the team can put that behind them because they're going to need JT Miller. And the fact that the fans absolutely love him, they were chanting his name at like some WWE event that was here that had nothing to do with, the Canucks outside of the fact that they were playing in their arena. So again, I want to be sensitive about the whole thing. I hope the team comes out of this better. I hope JT comes out of this better. And in fact, actually, I hope I'm wrong about it. I hope maybe it was just something where he just needed a break, from hockey, from the environment, whatever it is. But to me, it just feels like perhaps there was a little more to the situation than what we're being sold. One thing that I did not like about JT's presser coming back, well, there's two things in particular. He started off by just addressing everybody saying, I don't want to talk about it. Why I've been away. I want to talk about hockey. However, didn't really come at it, sort of with a lot of grace, kind of was a little combative, basically, saying, don't talk about this. I only want to talk about hockey. I thought there was just an easier way for him to do it. I thought perhaps, he could just start off by saying, listen, guys, I was away. I was battling a bit of an injury. I needed a reset. I'm all good now. Everything's behind us here. I just want to focus on hockey. Hopefully you guys can respect that. I think that would have gone a long way for him. But when you come at it sort of almost combative to start, you're leaving the door open for speculation like I just gave for other fans to give. I've seen it online and, it's a cesspool online anyway with some of the things that people say. But again, he hasn't really closed the door on that, right? And so I thought there was a better way for him to, sort of introduce himself to the media after coming back. One particular question, though, was from my buddy Farhan Lauji. And Farhan just basically said, hey, are you going to still play with the same amount of emotion? And I'm paraphrasing here. But are you going to play with the same amount of emotion that you have been in the past? And he shot that down and was like, I feel like this is towing the line. I don't want to answer that question. And Nick, I'll start with you. You don't have to agree with me on what I'm saying, by the way. You can tell me I'm an idiot if you want. You wouldn't be the first. But I just thought that question from Farhan in particular, I thought that was completely valid. And in fact, if I'm a fan of the Vancouver Canucks, I want to know if you're going to play that way. I like the pissed off JT Miller on the ice. I like the fact that he drags his team into the fight every single night. And in fact, I like the fact that he'll make his teammates accountable when he needs to. That's what true leadership does. But to slough off the question just about playing emotionally, I thought that was kind of weak from JT.
No, for sure. And like Farhan's such a respected journalist too, and he never like really goes after players. He just kind of tells it how it is. So didn't really love that response. I mean, JT's prefrontal cortex is fully developed, right? Like he's the guy he's going to be. He's an abrasive guy. And, I don't think he hates talking to the media, but I get the sense he doesn't really like it very much from a lot of answers. You've seen him and Drancer get into it a couple of times here and there. It's kind of him. I don't read too much into that. Obviously, you would like him to have a better answer, especially nowadays when you have like a whole PR team and everything with you for the Canucks. And I don't think questions like that probably should have blindsided him. He probably expected them coming. So I would like a better answer personally, but I'm not surprised by his answer, if that makes sense.
Where you at with the whole thing, Jake?
Yeah, honestly, like I see what you're saying. Like I definitely could see that being the case. Like we know he's had a lot of trouble with his teammates in the past, but I just feel like him and Pedersen, like how long have they been playing together? Like it's time to just get over the differences. Like they've been line mates. They were one of the top lines we've seen in the last 5 years for the Canucks. Everybody loves seeing the Lotto line getting put back together. Like I don't understand it. Like I've been in dressing rooms too where like you just don't get along with a few of the guys. Like that happens for sure. But you always find a way to make things work. Like you don't have to be best friends for life, hang out every single day outside of the rink. You got to come together, you got to do your job, and you try to win together. Like they both want to win. So I feel like they just like need to use that as motivation to come together and be teammates, be just good people that you want to play with. Yeah, if that is the case, like that's how I feel about it. I don't know. Like, obviously, you don't want to speculate a ton. Could, like you said, it could just have been injury, needed a reset, and then what we're saying doesn't matter at all. But yeah, for sure. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the fact that a leader on the team wears a letter, needs to be sent away by that team for a time.
And if it is a mental health thing where he needed a break, needed to get away, then I feel like an asshole, right? But it just seems to me that there's just a little bit too much to this. But as you mentioned, like they've been playing for years together, and they both got no trades, so no move clauses, excuse me. So although PD doesn't have one for this year, but I don't see the team moving on from Elias Pettersson. Yeah, you're right. Like they're gonna have to figure it out, and if they can't figure it out, then that's gonna come down to Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford trying to make a tough decision, but we'll see. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because, if you're a Canucks fan, like you want both those guys. You want JT Miller and Elias Pettersson on your team, and if you were to try to make a move with either of those guys, you're probably going to lose that trade because you're not going to be trading from a position of strength. And also, too, it's hard to replace those types of players.
It
right?
also divides the locker room too, right? Like you've
Sure.
heard so many instances in different sports of like two athletes are going at it and the team like takes sides, and then there's this battle within the room. Like an example that always comes to my mind is a football one, but Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb, that was such a distraction for a very talented team that ended up not finishing the season they wanted to because of that distraction. And there's also team chemistry so important going forward too. Like Kevin Bieksa was mentioning on his podcast how the year after the cup run, the Canucks made a trade deadline move for a certain center, Derek Roy, and he really affected the dressing room as well. And LA was a wagon, obviously, and probably would have won anyway, but that definitely didn't help them. So that's such an important thing that sometimes gets overlooked. So this situation, if it is true, again, don't want to speculate, you need to nip it in the butt right now and deal with it.
Well, they're going to have to deal with Brock Boeser and his contract, and there's a lot of rumors going around on what his camp is looking for right now. He's UFA at the end of the year, so like they got to make a decision here on what they want to do with the flow. The camp wants an 8-year deal. Apparently, they want it somewhere around $8 million. Now, the cap hit makes sense for a player like him. That's the going rate that you're going to pay for Brock Boeser. I have a hard time, paying Brock Boeser the same amount of money as you're paying JT Miller, because I feel that JT Miller is a hell of a lot better player than Brock Boeser is. But again, JT signed his contract, 2 years ago? So as the cap goes up, percentages, blah, 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 it'll basically be close to what JT was making when he signed his. But the thing with Boeser is he'll be 28 in February. We know about the foot speed. I'm also wondering if last year was sort of, his ceiling as a player. 70 some odd points. I think it was 73 points, 40 goals. He hasn't really come too close to that. And I feel like that, he can kind of stay around that, high 30s, low 70s in point total. But I just don't see him going much higher than that. I don't see Brock Boeser being a point a game player, and nor do I see him cresting, 40 goals on a regular occurrence. So I'll start with you, Jake. What do you do with Brock Boeser? Do you give him the 8 years? Do you swallow hard because of the fact that, him and JT Miller are just so dynamic together? Or do you perhaps, look around the league and go, anyone interested in a sniper?
Yeah, I think the Rutherford regime, like they're gonna do their job. They're probably gonna make some calls just to see what they could get for Brock Boeser. But I think at the end of the day, he's gonna stick with the Canucks. In his post-game interview after the game last night, I think it was Dan Murphy asked him about playing 500 games, and he said like he's thrilled to play 500 games in Vancouver and hopes to play another. I can't remember exactly what he said, but
hopefully there's
yeah.
I'm paraphrasing as well, but I heard what he said too.
Yeah. So obviously he's a guy that wants to be here. I mean, a couple of years ago, there were a bunch of trade rumors surrounding him. And what came out apparently was that he went to the team and said, I want to stay with the Vancouver Canucks. So I see him sticking around. I wonder if they can maybe use that as leverage. I don't think you're going to get anything less than 8 years. He's signed his last 2 contracts have been 3-year deals. So he wants a long-term deal for the first time in his career, and probably this is his last chance to get that. So I wonder if you can maybe get him down closer to the 7.5, 7.75 range. But yeah, I'd like to see him stick around in Vancouver. He not many guys in this league can score 40 goals, and the Canucks need that. Like, one of their biggest needs right now is depth scoring. They need goal scoring on their team. So you can't just give up Brock Boeser. You can't let him walk for free. But I don't think you can just get rid of a guy like that can get 30 to 40 goals every year for the next 4 years. And the way he plays too, like, he's not. Can he really slow down much more than he's going now?
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, if you're already, being able to produce with that sort of speed already. The one thing that I admire about Brock Boeser, outside of his hair is fantastic, is he's smart. Like it feels like he will evolve, and be a smarter player as he gets older. Maybe we'll see a more, because he's kind of like, I know everybody thinks of him as goal scorer, but he's got pretty good hands. Like he's a good playmaker as well, right? It's just that he's got JT Miller with him half the time, being the setup man. So, I could see Boeser as he gets older, just, aging well in terms of his hockey game. But I'm also wondering too, if, you just sort of set it up where if you are going to go the 8 years, around season 6 or whatever, instead of a full no move, maybe there's a no trade in those last couple of years, like he has right now. Like he's got a 10-team no trade list right now. So if they were to, want to move him, they could. Now they only can do it with a third of the league, but they can move Brock Boeser right now. So I'm wondering maybe if there's some, protections that sort of help out the team if they are going to go with the max term of 8 years. Real quick here before we get out of here, this one just came up before we pressed record. Sawyer Minnow, who was a 3rd round pick of the Canucks, a defenseman, 3rd round pick back in 2023, plays down in Seattle. He made the World Junior team. And that's great news, guys, for the Vancouver Canucks, because like how many, drafted and developed defensemen have they have over the years. Now, obviously, Quinn Hughes is going to stick out like a sore thumb, but like the fact that you're seeing stuff like this, like when was the last time they had a drafted and developed, although he hasn't been developed just yet, but a drafted defenseman playing on Team Canada? Like, Nick, can you maybe I'm forgetting somebody right now, but I don't feel like I am.
Yeah, other than DPD.
No, I'm talking for Team Canada, though.
Oh, for Canada.
Team Canada.
Sorry. Okay.
Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. They've had a handful of guys, play for other countries. But
we don't like to sign or draft Canadians for some reason.
Of course. And we don't like looking in our own backyard. At least the old regimes didn't. Look at Brendan Gallagher for that.
Yeah, but, Don Cherry would be so appalled. Just
absolutely
not enough boys from Thunder Bay for my liking. That's for sure.
I mean, he's over a point per game player, just over a point per game player in Seattle, and it looks like he's going to be an extra. But I guys, I just think it's a great story, and I love what the new regime, the Rutherford regime, as we call them, I love what they've been doing. I mean, just look at the like how smart they've been with the salary cap and just trying to not be in the LTIR this year. They have like current cap space at $4.2 million. Like, they're going to make a swing at the trade deadline. 100% they're going to make a swing at the trade deadline. Let's see who they can land. But let's get through Christmas before we start talking a trade deadline. Let's get through the week that's ahead, because it's going to be an awesome week, guys. 4 games, 2 at home, 2 on the road. One of them's a back-to-back. That's the road games. Let's start, though, with tomorrow night. I know you guys are younger than me, but I know you guys remember 2011. And just the hate that the Boston always brought to Canuck fans, through the years. It's faded. It's fading, I think, now. But I always get excited when the Bruins are in town. Like bad boy Bruins. Obviously they got the best of the Canucks in 2011, and Marchand's still there. I mean, guys, and I'll start with you, Jake. Do you hate the Bruins? I guess I should ask you, because you're both Canuck fans, but you guys were young in 2011. Like, does that pain hit you? Like, say maybe somebody of my vintage who was a Vancouver Canucks fan.
Yeah, I still remember where I was when they lost that Game 7. I was sitting in my hotel room in Winnipeg for a hockey tournament. My coach said curfew was 9, but my dad let me stay up and watch the game. It still hurts. Like, it's definitely not the same level of hatred towards the Bruins, but it's always going to be there. I mean, my cousins are big Bruins fans too, so it's always fun to kind of go at them about the Bruins. So yeah, there will always be hatred towards that team from me.
Yeah, 100%. Me too. Like, I still remember where I was too. I remember we had a field trip to Splashdown Water Park. I was in grade 7, and we rushed home because there was bad traffic on the way back from, I think, Chilliwack or wherever, or maybe it was called just anyway, bad traffic, rushed back, got there just in time for game time. Me and my friends rushed in, turned on the TV in my living room, and we were severely disappointed. Just such a heartbreaking game. I don't know if I hate the Bruins organization. I really didn't like that group of players they had.
Oh yeah.
Marchand being one of them.
But he was just young at that point too, right?
He was still such a rat though. God,
yeah.
That guy.
Imagine having that guy though in your bottom 6, right? Like,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, he's the type of player that if he's on your team, you absolutely love him, and if you play against him, can't stand him.
Absolutely hate him.
Yeah.
And I think the Bees are just kind of like that. It doesn't really matter who's wearing the sweater. Like, they come to town and you want to puke in your mouth. They'll finish up the homestand against Colorado. This is going to be a great game on Monday. Love seeing the Avs. Just over the years, just some great games with Colorado, especially here in town. There's one that sticks out. It was a couple of years ago. I can't remember the exact details, but man, it was just such a great game. It's Colorado, so much star power. And not only that, going back to what we were talking about earlier. If we want to have this debate about Makar and Hughes, well, it's going to be on full display on Monday at Rogers Arena. So I'm looking forward to that one. Then they hit the road They'll play their first ever game in Utah against the hockey club, which should be fun for the Canucks. And then on Thursday, a back-to-back, well, they'll face off against the Vegas Golden Knights in Vegas. They won't have time to get any sort of Vegas flu or anything like that, guys, because they'll be flying in from Utah. Although you never know, some guys might take a peek on what's going on down on the strip when they get in from Utah that night. You know, never closes, right? Why not? But with these 4 games here, before I let you go, and I'll start with you, Nick. How many of these games does Thatcher Demko get of the 4? You got to assume 1 because there's a back-to-back.
I'd go 2 and 2.
You go 2 and 2?
I'd go 2 and 2. Yeah.
Jake, what do you think?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
So
I'd probably go. Ooh. I think I'd go probably Demko against the Bruins, give Lankinen the Avs, because I just feel like Demko, like, you want to ease him in. You're not going to put him up against Mikko Rantanen, Nate McKinnon, Kel McCarr. And then I'd give Demko the Utah game. Lankinen back in net for Vegas. That's probably how I'd split it up.
Coming off a shutout, you think that Lankinen doesn't get the net against the Bees?
Oh, that's true too. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Oh,
It's like a rule, isn't it, that you have to give him the net? We'll see. Being interesting to see exactly what they do with the goaltending here. But again, like I said, fantastic week of hockey coming up for the Vancouver Canucks against at least 3 really good opponents. And then you can get our first look at Utah and the hockey club at that new rink down in SLC. All right, boys, good stuff for the Healthy Scratches. Nick and Jake, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week.